Good afternoon. Welcome to ReefYARNS number 2, which is building the alliance together. And we'll just move to our next slide. It's so important and customary that we acknowledge where we are and our brothers and sisters, our elders, past and present, that extend up and down the Great Barrier Reef, the traditional owners and its catchment, and their deep and ongoing connections to sea country. And we also acknowledge and honour the work of our old people, our elders and traditional owners who have come before us and tirelessly advocated for our inherent rights, interests and obligations to protect and care for sea country and continue to lead in its stewardship today. Such an honour. So next slide. So welcome everybody. My name's Malcolm Mann. I'm Darnball from the Central Queensland area, big area sea country down home. I'm the Director for Programs and Engagement with ReefTA, and it's certainly as that opening statement of acknowledgement that to work in this space is truly a privilege. It's an honour to continue to materialise the vision of our old people. Joined with me today is my colleagues, Kaylin Barrett. He's a Darnball man, Regional Coordinator in the engagement team. We've got Miala Blackman, who's Nawagi, Munbra, Garang, proud woman there, and our Regional Coordinator in our engagement team as well. And we've got Gabriel Little, located down in Bundaberg, Garang and Waka Waka man, who's our Youth Program Coordinator. And each of us will share with you here today around this really important topic. And so welcome, everybody. Yes, so next slide. Just a few administrative items before we kick on. This presentation will go for about 45 minutes with 10 minutes questions and answers session. It will be recorded and shared to the ReefTA website. The cameras on is optional, and we've muted microphones for all participants here just to avoid any background noise. If you run into any technical issues, try refreshing your screen or rejoining the session. If you've got any questions as well as we go along, please pop them in the Q&A chat, and moderators here we'll choose a selection there to discuss at the end, and any questions we don't get to, it'll be answered in the written Q&A that'll be sent out with the recording. Also, if you've got any issues with the Q&A feature, please email your question to engage@reefto.au. That's engage@reefto.au. We follow the ReefTA gathering protocol. So we've made a commitment to each other just to respect each other in this space, importantly, as we yarn and work through this important piece of work, this body of work for all our mobs. And just a warning as well that some of the slides contain here maybe of people who have passed, and we do this work in their honour. Our next slide. So yeah, today's Reef Yarn is just, it is a practical walkthrough of the Alliance building blocks and why each of these building block pieces matter, and what we've heard from Mob as we've gone through, as we've yarned with Mob on this engagement journey. And just to recap, so this is session number 2, but session 1 was why we need the Alliance, and today is what we need to build it. And so what's important in this one is that it's an opportunity for Mob to be in the driver's seat, and that we're building this thing together. It's not us building it from ReefTA, it's Mob themselves engaging in conversations about what these elements should look like moving forward. And so my colleagues here, so Miala will give a description of each of these building block pieces here today, and then I'll speak to some of the conversation starters the questions we ask with Mob. And then we'll have Kaylin, who's been out on the road fairly consistently about what we're hearing, and we'll have Gabe talk to the youth components in this session here today. Our next slide is an animation around building an alliance. So we'll play that here. Thank you. Thank you. And so we've come to this really important piece of work now. It's the crux of why we do what we're doing. And it's not a new thing. It's not a new conversation. And a lot of our old people have advocated on our behalf to get to this point. So we're really, over the last 8 months, been going out, yarning with Mob, and doing some interactive activities around what people think the purpose and the vision is. So we're building our own table, and as the image here describes or illustrates rather, that we're building our own table around our purpose and vision, about the governance and decision making, the membership and inclusion, funding and operations, the cultural elements, the cultural ways of working, youth leadership, measuring success. And so these are really important conversations for us to determine the future that we want. And so the time is getting quite real, and so we've been out and about, and we're coming down to the pointy end of these discussions. Next slide, thanks. I'll hand this to Miala, who'll give a overview of
Thanks,
this building block. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the first building block that we end up going through is value and purpose. This building block focuses on why the Alliance should matter and what it's here to do, and what real value it should bring to traditional owners across the reef. This is about grounding the Alliance in what's important for mob, not just on paper, but in practice. Together, we explore what success looks like and what the Alliance should stand for, how it can strengthen our collective voice while respecting the authority of each group. This is your space to share your thoughts and help shape the direction moving forward, because at the end of the day, you decide. Next slide, please. It asks questions like, oh, sorry. Mel,
yeah, no, thanks, Miala. Yeah, no, exactly right. And so we these are some of the questions that we pose to the mob. Why must the Alliance exist? What should it do? What should it not do is really important, equally important as well. What's in it for reef traditional owners? And so it's really important to get a bearing around mob about, what this should look like. Next slide.
Thanks, Uncle. So, yeah, some of the things we've been hearing from mob up the coast in terms of purpose and vision of an alliance is mob see the real power in that united voice of bringing reef traditional owners together. And, very clearly that voice will be hard to ignore, sorry. There is a real vision of traditional owners working together like we once did, leaning on them things that bring us together, those old songlines, trade routes, migratory species, leaning on them old ways and working together like we once did. Mob want an alliance that works for mob and their priorities, not government and the government's priorities. And they see it as a space to really drive home that legislative and policy change in line with mob's priorities on country. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Miala.
All right, so the next conversation we have with people is that this yarn is about what governance looks like. It's making sure it reflects our cultural ways of working and respects each traditional owner group and keeps authority where it belongs, and that's with you. This is about shaping how decisions are made and who makes them, how they are made, and how we make sure every voice is heard in a fair and culturally strong way. We're not here to impose a structure. We're here to build one that works for mob. It is accountable and stands strong when engaging with government and others. Your voice is very critical in this space because you decide that how the alliance should be governed and how decisions should be made moving forward.
Yeah, so this is a really important item, that mob question as well. So it's not about us imposing our views about how decisions should be made. It's us collecting views from mob, what's best suited for their own arrangements within their community, their cultural governance arrangements. And so how do we make decisions? Who decides what? How do we choose leaders? How do we resolve disagreements? And so some of these questions are really important for us to unpack and to understand mob and how they process, how they make decisions, and how information is exchanged, passed top down. So these are really important items in the subject area. Thank you.
Thanks, Uncle. Yeah, so a little bit of what we've been hearing is so that regional representation has come through as a vital part in that decision-making space. So ensuring mob are making decisions for their country and people, not just a majority vote of all members sort of deciding on what happens on people's country. Decisions, they need to be grounded in culture, not just have majority vote. Then key point here is there needs to be that space for elders in the leadership. So either as an elders council or advisory board, but sitting at that very top of governance. Cheers. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Miala.
Membership and inclusion. Here we yarn about membership. Who should be a part of the alliance, how groups are represented how represented and how we make sure the right people are speaking and making decisions. We'll also look at inclusion, making sure elders, youth and community voices are respected and have a place in this space. This is about building something that is fair, culturally strong and clear in who it represents, while keeping authority with each traditional owner group. Your input shapes this because you decide.
Yeah, so who can join? So in terms of membership and inclusion, just ReefTA groups or concassionate mob, NGOs, researchers, partner organisations, can they join too? Should there be different types of memberships or tiers of memberships? Should elders and youth have specific roles? And so we're garnering this information from mob, which will help shape, how it's inclusive around the place and the membership aspects. Thank you.
Yeah, so Mob have indicated that they see reef traditional owners as those full members of an alliance, but we can't forget those catchment mobs. So like we know that whatever happens upstream really affects our sea country and the reef. So those catchment brothers and sisters, they really need to be brought along and a space needs to be created for them. So whether that be through a tiered membership or just sort of by providing those exchanges and places for collaboration. In terms of partners and stakeholders, we know Mob have existing relationships that are working in some instances and are not in some instances. So we know there needs to still be that space, but not as a voting member, not as a full member, more as a paid consultant, paid advisor. Some of these are the things that have come through with those partners. Also, Mob have told us that the membership needs to be flexible. So for groups that are not quite ready or need some more time, we're always open. So reef traditional owners with those inherent sea country rights, they'll always have a place in this alliance.
Thanks, Miata.
This building block focuses on how the Alliance will be resourced and run. We'll yarn about funding, where it comes from, how it's managed, and how we make sure it supports traditional owner priorities. We'll also look at operations and how the Alliance functions day to day, who does the work, and how it stays accountable and transparent. This is about building something practical, sustainable, and driven by Mob, while supporting and not replacing the work already happening on sea country.
Yeah, questions we often pose is what will it cost to operate? What staff do we need? Where should money come from? And importantly, or equally important, is where should it not come from? So this is really important points for us to navigate through when it comes to sustaining our funding into the future and the operations into the future. So, so this slide here, so Futures Fund. So there is a sustainable funding plan alongside this work as well as part of this build. But come along to ReefYARNS session number 4 and we'll delve even further into the Futures Fund.
Thanks, son. Yeah, so we've heard it's very important for the Alliance not to be beholden to government and those funding streams. So we should not be competing with traditional owners on the ground for their existing funding buckets. And like mentioned by Uncle Mel with the Futures Fund, there has been real interest in that endowment fund option. So that more forever fund that will sort of provide that long-term sustainability and independence for the Alliance and for reef traditional owners.
I think to that last point there, it's not about competing too as well, with Mob for funding as well. So being independent, as Callan mentioned, them hugely important. Thanks, Miata.
This building block focuses on the cultural elements and the cultural ways of working. We want to make sure that the Alliance is grounded in culture first. We'll yarn about how cultural protocols, law, Alawari law, and ways of working guide how the Alliance operates and makes decisions. This is about ensuring respect, integrity, and cultural authority sit at the centre, not as an add-on, but as the foundation. We're building something that reflects who we are and how we work as Mob, because it is you who decide.
yeah, this is certainly important for us to understand the cultural elements, how we navigate with mob. There's 70 odd different groups up and down the reef. So it's really important for us to respect their laws and customs, respect their elders and how they're situated, their knowledge holders. How do we protect cultural knowledge? How do we sustain this into the future as well? How do we support mob's knowledge, our knowledge systems, and that into the future? Thank you. Just on mute, Carl.
Sorry, Mob. Yes, as mentioned before, elders sit at the top of this, and cultural elements, elders must be included and listened to it through all stages. And also Mob have said that law, LORE, needs to lead. So sort of going on what I mentioned earlier, we need to celebrate those existing connections, but also respect the differences across mob and those differences, in law and custom, but really emphasizing that collective power and that collective ceremony and bringing those things back. So ICIP frameworks are crucial in this space, as well as that free, prior, and informed consent to mob. And that sort of moves into that data sovereignty. So moving into that modern space, we need to support mob in how they're capturing and storing data, and that obviously moves into that ICIP space. So very important there.
I'll hand this over to Brother Gabe there now. Yeah, there he is.
Thank you. Youth leadership, without investing in the next generation, now the Alliance risks losing the continuity of the sea country knowledge and advocacy for our young people and energy, connection to the digital tools and long-term perspective that experienced leaders value. Obviously, last year, part of the Sea Country Forum, which was held in Cairns, it was recognised and voiced by the traditional custodians at that forum to obviously voice their opinions for our young people to come on board in this sea country space and obviously build that pathway and platform and leadership in this Sea Country Alliance. Next slide, please. So some of the stuff, I suppose, what we've heard through our yarns with the mob up and down the coast, how do we bring our youth into the Alliance? Some of these conversations were to possibly establish a youth, I suppose, platform where they're upskilling. There's more opportunities in this space. How do we connect with the elders and youths, ensuring that we're following protocols and our LORE law and respecting our elders within our communities to distribute not only their presence but knowledge. It was one of the key things we got out of these yarns with our young people during these workshops, with the skills for our young people, young leaders, is to create more pathways and opportunities to generate that high level for our future generations. What we're hearing, obviously, I just touched on more of a role for the youth and mentoring between both the elders and the youth, ensuring that it's culturally aligned with our protocols and customs within the certain regions up and down the coast. Next, please. As you can see on the screen, this is our Reef Youth Circle crew. Jamelia Illan, based in Townsville. Leon Yateman is based in Yarrabah, and Jermaine Deshong is located in Mackay. Some of the obviously things we are working on now is with the youth is filtering back into their communities, identifying with the mobs, especially targeted at young mob, some questions around youth programs, so we can sort of gather that information to filter in to a youth reef, young reef leaders program, which will be obviously designed by myself, being as the coordinator. The youth obviously have, through their being coming on board, of the ReefTO, have obviously applied for their certificates to upskill themselves within the ReefTO and Sea Country space. We're creating that pathway and journey for our next generation in that development of leadership. Thank you. Next.
Measuring success. This building block focuses on how we define and track success for the Alliance. Here we'll yarn about what success looks like from a traditional owner perspective, not just numbers, but real outcomes for Sea Country, culture, and community. This includes how we measure impact, hold ourselves accountable, and make sure the Alliance is delivering on what matters to mob. This is about setting our own measures of success because you decide.
Yeah, so some of the questions we're posing out there, what can we achieve, this time next year? And it's great to hear, various answers around this. How will we know that the Alliance is working? What is our legacy? What will be handed down to the next generation? And so I think this is a really important piece here as part of, as we've mentioned in the earlier session, the previous session, that this is not a new thing. And so this is about continuing the journey and continuing to materialise what our old people want for us to achieve. And that's, reinstating our cultural authority across our sea country, for our mobs up and down the reef. And so, and at the same time, looking after country, sea country, and our communities, our people, a really important building block piece. Thank you.
Thanks, Uncle. Yeah, so mob want to see those concrete outcomes from Sea Country and not just those milestones, The Alliance, mob see the Alliance, having earned respect from mob and community as a big measurement of success. As mentioned earlier, so Reef Traditional Owners working and achieving goals together. Culture and language. So it's come through at a lot of our engagements that the revival and continuation of culture and sort of being at the forefront and language at the forefront is very important, especially to some of our older people. And we're really seeing that legislative change in line with the mob's priorities. So the advocacy is really working and mob are seeing it on the ground. Also, I will just add sort of onto what Gabe's space there, like obviously those youth, some of those outcomes from the youth, that's how mob sees success. So our next generation being mentored by elders, that transfer of knowledge happening, they're moving into leadership spaces, all these sort of things.
Yeah, so this really important statement from our co-chair, Dwayne Fraser. Imagine a future where traditional owners have real authority over sea country, a future where our knowledge systems shape marine management, where our rangers are leading conservation efforts, where young people see real pathways to leadership, a future where we no longer fight for a seat at the table because we've built our own. We can invite whoever we want to our table, whenever, at the time that we want them there. And so that's real. It's reinstating that authority back, and that's so definitely a change is happening. And so these 7 building blocks are connected, as that image shows there on the screen. The decisions made in one area affects the others. So purpose shapes governance, governance shapes membership, funding shapes independence. So there's no single correct design. The Alliance we built together should reflect the values and priorities of reef traditional owners, which is exactly why these conversations matter. And so we are hearing from mob, and we are pulling this together, and it's about to get real. Yeah. Next slide, thanks. But yeah, so, questions? Yeah, so there's an opportunity here now to ask any questions. And that's, so we'll just open up this session here now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mel and the team, for the presentation. I'm just looking at the chat for some questions coming through. We have one here around the building blocks. So of all the building blocks there that the team presented on today, I guess which one has sparked the most yarns on country so far? So in them sessions, which of those building blocks, I guess, are people spending the most time on? What's really coming through as important?
Yeah. Carla, did you want to kick off with this one? I can add.
Yeah, I think purpose and vision really comes through as a powerful one. It gets mob thinking of that ideal future for traditional owners, and it really gets the conversation going and those yarns started. And I think the other building blocks are more around how do we get there, how do we get to that vision? So yeah, I think purpose and vision is there's some enjoyable yarns them ones.
I think it'll be shared in that, as I mentioned, the Futures Fund down the track, but that'll be delved in further. But there's definitely interest around. Yeah, that's a good idea. Good ideas, Nat. We've heard mob come and go, and as Carlin mentioned, how do we get there? So how do we keep the lights on? How do we operationalize this thing? So the funding is of interest around this, and what's important, and what we've heard from mob is that, and we want to flick the switch around the money side of things. We don't want to be competing with mob. That's there's a lot of busyness there already. It's about us trying to value add in that space as well. So and as Kayla mentioned about the purpose and value, once we understand what the direction of where mob want the alliance to go, and then I think it's important about how that funding piece, how we keep the lights on and how we grow it into the future is another really important point of interest that mob have.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for those insights. I think the purpose and vision is the really big one, right? Because if you don't have that, then you don't know where you're going. So
Right.
It's important to have those yarns about what it's going to be and what it's going to do and the change it's going to have. Another question that's coming through is how is Reef TO making sure that some of those smaller TO groups have the same voice as some of the larger, maybe better resourced or organized groups?
Yeah, I'm happy to kick off.
Yeah.
Carl Mialo, go. Yeah, feel free to jump in too. But I think it's really important, that one. Like it's important because it's about a journey of everybody. We understand. We also understand the busyness of mob. We also understand that some groups are maybe more administratively capable or capacity. That they've got a bunch of programs and assets and all sorts of things on the go. Workforce and that. But then you've got startup groups or groups that have interest around about the place. So it's important for us to engage with all the groups, those governance groups, about what's important for them, particularly when they come into this space. I mean, one of the big questions they have, what's the value for them? What's the value of Reef TA for them? Whether they're a big group or a smaller group, there's that common point of interest as well. So it's really important that the journey of all, rather than just the big players, but we do respect and acknowledge all groups in this space, whether they're of a large organisation or just startup.
Can I just add too, Mel, just with those bigger groups and obviously with the smaller groups is that communication also with the mob and building that partnership so they're recognised and supported too in this obviously Sea Country Alliance. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the, especially through the regional dialogues, the opportunity for mob to come together. For them, there's power when mobs do come together. I mean, they learn from each other too. They have these conversations, whether it's in the meeting or outside the meeting. You know, there's value in that. There's power in that, and so you know, there's exchange opportunities. They you know, some business they're so busy doing their own thing, you know, on their own country in their own areas, but when they have the opportunity to come together, and this is, you know, potentially one of those value pieces of, as you say, Gabe, where mob are able to work a bit more collaboratively together, maybe, you know, compared to what they're doing now. So this is an opportunity where mob can influence the space about what that could look like. Yeah.
Yep. Fantastic. Thanks, Mel and Gabe. I've got one more question sitting here. It's after yarning with so many different groups across the reef, how is ReefTO actually going to land on a decision when it's time to make that call, like after you finish all the engagements?
Miala, you want to kick off?
Well, no, that's a big question. No, Mel, I don't want to. I
Okay,
don't want to.
that's cool.
Yeah, no, I think that you
So-
should answer to this one.
No,
I'm
that's
quite
cool.
confident that you know, we're doing what we need
Yeah.
to do on the ground to make sure that everybody's input is being valued and assessed and how we can place it all together. But you know, we're still in that building stage. And we want to make sure that when we get it right. So that is a really deep question. Mel, you might want to add further to that.
Yeah, you're right. Like, this is a once in a generation opportunity. We've been saying it for a while. We've got one shot to get this right too. Yeah, so we are actually coming down to the pointy end of our engagements, and so there'll be a, you know, a period where we got to pull what everyone's been talking about to these building blocks, all the themes through these regional dialogues, through our one-on-ones, and that our engagements. You know, what are mob saying to governance, membership, inclusion, the cultural ways, purpose and value, and that. And so it's going to define quite quickly about what this is going to look like and that. And so, yeah, we've got to tighten up the bootstraps for us, you know. So, but at the same time, we do have an obligation back to the mob because we've gone out there and to let them know about where we've landed. So where we've landed, what mob have been saying, and this is what it's come down to, and that. And so it's been presenting that back to the mob and giving them an opportunity to comment too, as well on that.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. And if I can just add to that for anyone online or who will watch it later, we've also got a Have Your Say form that we've recently added to our website. So if you're unable to make it to an in-person yarn, the regional dialogues, or any of these Reef Yarn webinars, you can jump on and you can give your feedback through that form. All of your feedback that you give will be de-identified. So, you know, we can't identify that it's due, but it'll go into all of this, I guess, data that we're collecting from everyone to see what the key themes are coming out from these yarns. And it's really important to get as much input as possible. So that's another way that you can join the conversation as well.
Yeah, deadly mish. Yep, it's good.
That's it. Yeah, that's all the questions.
That's all the questions, deadly. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details are there. And that. So gee, wish I was younger looking, but but feel free to contact us there, and yeah, happy to have a yarn. yeah, and up there. But yeah, really thank yous for today. And but feel free to connect with us. Sign up to our newsletters, Facebook, Instagram, QR codes there. Scan away. And yeah, looking forward to engaging with you, mob. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.